Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Education Matters. I'm Deborah Olster, and today we have Rico McCahon from Liberty Harbor Academy, and he's the interim headmaster, and he's going to be talking to us about the differences between public school, charter school, private school. I guess there's some confusion among some of the folks when they're trying to decide what's best for their children. So thank you, Rico, for coming back to us. This is the second time now.
Yes.
And so we're glad to have you again. And so you have something important to tell our folks at home.
Well, I am the interim headmaster of a private school, Liberty Harbor Academy. And it seems that, we're often asked if we're a charter school, and then when we ask them, the people who are asking us if we're a charter school, what they mean by that, what they're looking for, they don't seem to know. So I wanted to take some time to try to clear that up somewhat. In doing so, we have to kind of go back over the Common Core, which is really my main point in differentiating the three: public, charter, and private. And then we may even have some time to go into a little bit of why that makes such a big difference. The three main parts of Common Core that I need to talk about are the curriculum, which we've heard a lot about, the testing, and the data collection. And they all work together. And on some level, at least they're pitched as sounding like it. Yeah, it's a cohesive. It's all supposed to work together for the good of the child. Curriculum, we have seen all kinds of examples of the odd and sometimes disturbing, inappropriate, all sorts of things. While I've heard also examples of just sort of more benign use of some of the English, as much as I've seen use of executive orders or sort of issues from the EPA as this is an English assignment. I've also heard of a number of just kind of ordinary sounding assignments. So we have to be careful if we are going to speak out against the Common Core curriculum that we don't sort of sound like kooks at times by pointing to just those bad examples. It's all intended as a cohesive curriculum, but it's always pitched as just the standards. And you've had other guests that have talked at length about this stuff. The common phrasing is too that it's not. We don't tell you exactly what to teach, because there's about a 15% gap where you can include your own material, and that sounds fantastic. What teacher wouldn't want to have some leeway in a curriculum like that? The problem ends up being with the testing, and the testing. You told me that you just heard that testing is going to be put off for another few years, much like some of the fines and other requirements for small businesses under Obamacare, the same sort of technique.
I think the using of the test for the assessment or the evaluations for the teachers, but I do believe that the kids are going to still have to take the test, unfortunately, but it won't be counted towards the teachers. So maybe not. That's what I'm thinking I heard there. The parents always have a right to refuse testing, especially these standardized testings,
right,
or assessments. But this is a problem.
An excellent point. And no matter what system you go under, whether it's testing, we even saw some of the strange survey kind of stuff. Bedford High School had a few months ago. Parents need to be vigilant when it comes to making sure they understand what's coming up and what is being collected, what is being tested. You can take control of your kids' information, but you have to be ready to make sure that they're telling you everything that's going on. Simple, oops, we forgot to send out the email and let you know about the test coming up, or that what was in the test. It's very simple to overlook these things, and it seems easy enough. As an administrator, I mean, I know that there are times where things get hectic, but these are things that should not just slip under the radar. Oops, I'm sorry.
We failed to inform you, parents. Sorry.
Yes, we did intend to. Wonderful. Testing, we have to be careful again not to throw all testing under the bus. It's not, if you're going to have a curriculum, if the best intended curriculum, and which Common Core I think is intended for some end, maybe not the one that we'd agree with, but it is intended to an end. If you want to have any standards, you have to be able to test for them. So testing itself is not the evil. However, we go back to that 15% we talked about with the flexibility in the curriculum, that each teacher would have about 15% of flexibility in what is taught. The problem with the tests is that if the test is determining how well the curriculum is being taught, they're going not to test on the 15%, but on the rest of it. And I'd presume that there would probably be, if you're teaching 15% content that is not included in Common Core, well, what are you not teaching that might then be on those tests? So the tests really enforce the curriculum as much as it seems that the tests or the curriculum is pitched as just something that you can, it's just some standards, it's just a way of rigorous, which we know it's not, rigorously improving the child's education. With the test and the way that they're being tested, it's clearly not. It cannot be. The test will force the teachers to teach to that material.
They use the word drive. The standards drive the curriculum.
Isn't that's such a almost scary.
It is.
Who's in the driver's seat now?
Right. So how do we compare that then with Liberty Harbor and how you do things at Liberty Harbor? And I guess you want to let us know if it's the difference between a private school and a charter school or a public school.
If you are in a public school, the curriculum, the testing, and the data collection, we don't know a whole lot about that yet, other than it has been reported that there are some 400 data points. And for those who aren't sure, that means just 400 bits of information are being collected. They're intentionally coding for these things. And we have heard reports that it's not just what grades they're getting or what their GPA is. It's behavioral, psychological, voting information.
Of the parents, right?
Yeah, stuff that...
Parents' information
why
and family
is this fitting in there?
As well.
Yeah. So if you're in a public school, there's the curriculum. Everyone has adopted that, and all of New Hampshire is going through the standards there. The testing will enforce that curriculum, and then the data collection will be there as well. Parents, you got to be vigilant. You got to keep your eye on this stuff. Charter schools are a great improvement on that. Just be clear that I think charter schools are a great idea. We need to see more educational innovation. Charter schools have a dramatic increase in flexibility when it comes to the curriculum. They can go well beyond that 15%. They don't have to even adopt the Common Core curriculum. Where things become tricky is when the testing, the Common Core tests, are in full force. Now that as much as they will be able to teach other things, outside the Common Core curriculum, they have to teach at least partially to the test, else they will be docked. We have yet to see exactly what will happen.
They can't make a charter school be a focus school or a priority school because they're not taking Title I money, from what I understand. So they're not really going to be penalized if they just say that these test scores really don't apply to our school. You make us take the test, but, they're moot to us.
Mm-hmm. When we started Liberty Harbor Academy, one of the things we looked at, do we want to turn it into a charter school or private school? We took our lead from Hillsdale Academy out in Michigan. They refused to take any sort of federal money because of the conditions. It may be one circumstance now, today,
Right.
but if that law changes, if the legislature shifts things, I know we're always trying to get more people, liberty-minded people, into the legislature, but if that law shifts, so too does the charter school. I mean, the state still has to approve even the private schools, but we are not as constrained by that sort of the legislative will or whim, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to some of the testing, since we don't have to conform to the testing, and we are apart from that, and what's almost strange is seeing some of the private schools that have taken on and adopted Common Core aspects. Even the
parochial schools.
The parochial schools.
Mm-hmm.
That I was shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 for them now. It's a real problem because parents are looking for an out of Common Core, and they can't turn to the parochial schools because the parochial schools are adopting Common Core for the most part. Now, there might be a few here and there that don't, but you got to check with your diocese, folks, because this is not it's so clear and so sure that you don't have Common Core in your parochial schools. So
it's too widespread.
Yeah.
I can, as much as I think it's the wrong choice for the parochial schools, and any whether it's a charter or a private school that adopts Common Core, I can sympathize with the stressed and probably overworked administrators who are. This seems like a way out to make things simpler, perhaps getting them access to other federal funding, whatever it is that they're looking for.
Well, sometimes they're voucher schools. Some of the states have voucher programs.
Yeah, that's an excellent. Not all charter schools are the same.
No.
Each state sets up their own variety.
And we're not a voucher state,
Right.
but the states that are, and the parochial schools there want to be able to accept your voucher from the state so you can come to their parochial school. However, now the state says, well, we're going to put a mandate.
Yeah.
You accept one dime of that voucher, then you're going to have to do what we tell you.
Mm.
And that is accept Common Core or accept the testing, or that drives the curriculum.
Right.
So, and then there you go.
Yeah, and just go back to Hillsdale. We hold them as a model school for us because at first they were a complete private school funded by private donations, and at first they were taking federal money that was just being offered to them to facilitate their own educational programs. As soon as the conditions started coming into play, well, you have to do this, you have to take these measurements, you have to have this much diversity, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, then we're not going to do that. And they would sit down and actually have a conversation. They're not just knee-jerk, absolutely not. But they took the time and thought about it and really looked at, all right, so what is the cost of accepting this money? And they realized it's not worth it.
No.
Too dangerous. And even their relationship with the GI Bill is informative, where the GI Bill gives money to veterans to put towards their education. Hillsdale thought this would be an okay thing, primarily because they weren't accepting the funds. The veterans were accepting the funds.
I see.
And so they were then choosing where to. It was sort of almost treating it as a voucher, in a sense.
Except it goes to the veteran, not to the school, so they
Right,
couldn't
and then
control the school.
Right, and then the veteran would then choose where to.
That's a better way to do it,
Right.
yes. Like following the child rather than the state paying the school.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were accepting this, the federal government said, "You are accepting federal funds. You now have to comply with these." I don't recall the exact circumstances that they were.
Oh, they still, in fact,
They
are
were
making
they were going to be again.
demands on them?
Yes.
Even so?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. You take any money, and this is partly why Liberty Harbor is a private school.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to distance ourselves from any public money. We saw the way that a public or a private school, a public charter school would be set up in New Hampshire. There is some upfront money made available. It's very attractive. The idea that students wouldn't have to pay tuition. Oh, this is fantastic.
They get bused to school.
Now, all this stuff. It just seems that would be a great thing. It would make our lives a lot easier. Except when you look at the capacity for hooks and little landmines that you didn't see coming.
Right.
This legislative shift, and suddenly everything is different.
Right. All right. So you're protecting your students, protecting your teachers by not accepting federal funds, not doing any sort of Common Core
Right. And
standards, curriculum,
it makes
whatnot.
our task difficult, but I think it's worth it, forever worth it. We can have standards for ourselves that are actually rigorous.
Over and beyond.
Mm-hmm. And we at Liberty Harbor are actually teaching what would be a liberal arts college curriculum. The students that are taking the, say, the Western Civ freshman level class, which we call it the Tuscan level instead of freshman, but they are writing the same papers that I wrote for our one of our founders, Dr. Cooper. Now, it was 14 years ago. The same papers. So that we are really pushing them well beyond their comfort zone. I just met with our first graduate today. We had our graduation on June 7th, I believe it was. It was an awesome day. And already just seeing how much she's matured, how much she has risen to the challenge. I mean, this was a girl that she had her emotional challenges in the beginning, and has come out a much stronger individual, and she's heading off to college, and just is really impressive at this point.
We should have her on sometime.
It's a great idea.
I think we could have her on, and she could tell us of her experience at Liberty Harbor, and in that regard. So the grades that you have now, or the age group that you have at Liberty
We are
Harbor?
effectively a 7th through 12th grade. It's not quite as straightforward as that. We have the prep, which is our middle school, 7th and 8th grade, and then our academy is basically 9 through 12. But we have, instead of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, they come in as Tuscan. When they have met the requirements of being a Tuscan, meaning both academic and character traits that we're looking for, they move on to Doric, then Ionic, and then Corinthian. And at Corinthian, they are preparing to graduate. In the meantime, some of the experiences they go through, they are an active teacher's assistant, so they get classroom experience. One of the funniest things to see is when we ask them to grade their peers. It's at that point it's just suggestions. We're not letting them actually grade their peers, but understand that there is a responsibility to assess, and suddenly it becomes a very serious thing.
It's a tough thing to assess someone else on their achievement or performance.
Yep.
How critical do you get, or how strict do you get?
And we see both ways, where it's sort of a very lenient TA, and the ones who suddenly decide that I'm going to follow all the grammar rules. But of course, they actually start learning them in a new way, in a way that isn't often available. After being a TA, we start looking for internships for our students. And the intent of that is to get them some experience that, say they want to be a veterinarian. Instead of, like, all right, well, then take some biology classes, and then eventually you will go on to school, and hopefully you'll still like it then. To get them some experience now, so that maybe they'll think, wow, this is really good, and I've got some connections, so I'm going to continue doing this. Or, that was something I never ever want to do again, and now they've learned an amazing lesson, and they're going to potentially save a lot of money
In college.
Yes.
They found out now in high school, rather than going and spend thousands of dollars in college and figuring out, no, that's not the major I want.
Yeah, we
Start
have
over.
all kinds of interests come up, and when we can treat an interest of a student that seriously, where it's not just, oh, well, that's nice, I'm glad you like that. More, what do you want to do? Let's find some opportunity. internships aren't always, the traditional internship isn't always the best choice. For example, we've got either lawyers or architects, people that might not be able to take on a high school intern, still being able to job shadow, being able to introduce and make connections that they'll be able to use for their own education to know, is this something I want to do? And go on for more education if necessary.
When do they start those interns? Is it primarily their senior year or the junior year?
It would be effectively the junior year.
Okay.
The reason we go the Tuscan, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian orders is it's not tied to years.
Okay.
It will
It's
probably
a
take
performance
about,
level.
Right. It'll probably take about 4 years. It could take, in theory, as few as 2. I think that would be a remarkable individual who could do that. But if it's necessary that they need to stay an extra year, that's okay. We know that students don't mature at the same rate. That they don't. That sometimes there'll be something that just happens. We've had, I'm thinking of another individual, a student who, her first year was rough. She didn't seem to understand the academic aspects. Something happened in that second year where it just, I get it. I understand. And she's become a star student.
That's nice.
It's incredible. And it seems it's never just the academics. It's a maturity starts blossoming, and suddenly they become these people that I can have excellent conversations with, and things are just really happening.
So they're not pressured under the standards assessment where they're being tested, and remediated until they get whatever they're supposed to be or at in the standard at that level. That we still have grade levels that where the standards are pitched, I might say. So you don't have that where that pressure's not on the student.
No, I mean there are skills that they need to have, and so we have to fulfill all the requirements of the New Hampshire high school graduation, which are fairly minimal, actually. For example, there's no language requirement, despite every college
requires
wants to see at least 2 years. So those standards, we'll see if those shift at all during.
So you have those language
Yep.
standards or requirements.
Yeah, if any school just stuck to those standards, the students would come out wholly unprepared. They would not be ready for much of a career in college or much of anything.
So you're not necessarily preparing the students for college, but you're preparing them for whatever their potential and their interest.
Right, and that's a tricky thing, but part of how we handle that, we have advising every day. The students in small groups have an advisor, and we discuss whether it's schoolwork issues, relationships, that comes up quite a bit, jobs, excuse me, college aspirations, whatever it is. And because we can see the things that they are interested in and aiming at, we can start orienting them towards that not everything requires a college degree. If they are showing an aptitude towards starting their own business, we can help them out with that. And if they're ready for that kind of thing, college you put that off for a bit. Just hang on to it, because it's a really expensive thing. And if there's a venue for you to express where your aptitudes are, don't assume you have to do that. It's not a necessary experience. In fact, it could be detrimental.
To go to college,
it could be handicapped.
Yeah, if that's not what you want to be, or not where you want to be, and where you want to go, you can't figure out how to best utilize college. Obviously, it has to be an outcome. It's a purpose for it. I mean, some kids go to party, right?
Right, as the experience.
I don't think your students, you're not encouraging your students to go to college to party.
No, not at all. In fact, if they show any indication of that's what they want to do, or if they just say, I want the college experience.
Yeah.
all right, we can arrange for other things.
Just be more specific.
Right. Yeah, that's not a good reason.
Right.
Or if it's, I want to get away from home or all these kinds of things, yeah.
Yeah.
But that advising every day, I think, is an additional aspect of that. If we had to teach to the Common Core curriculum, we wouldn't have time for
It'd
that.
be handicapping.
Right. It would be impossible to get that kind of. We really get to know the students in a way that it doesn't come out in a classroom.
So you don't teach to the test.
Nope.
You're teaching to the student, basically.
Yeah.
Not
Yep.
to the test.
Teaching to the
Not
student's
to the-
potential, holding the standard as high as we can without breaking their spirit. I mean, it has to be achievable in some way.
Right.
But holding the bar as high as we can.
And you say without breaking the spirit of the child. You know, we're seeing that with Common Core.
Yeah, I've been hearing New York has been having there's sort of a growing epidemic of Common Core trauma.
Syndrome.
Yeah. Is that what they're calling
Common
it?
Core syndrome. And if folks, if you look up Common Core syndrome, or just anything on Common Core, you'll find that the students are being traumatized by the constant testing, and they're feeling like they're failures, the way it's approached, and they just don't feel good about themselves. And I'm not saying I'm all for self-esteem, give everything to make their self-esteem, no matter what it is, But there's a point where you break the child's spirit.
And they give up.
And that's a bad
There's
place.
a book that I'm using for part of my advising. I have now 5 guys of my own that I advise. But the book Do Hard Things, have you heard of this? It's a teenage rebellion against low expectations. You get self-esteem not by being given A's, but by doing things that are difficult and getting through them. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it won't be perfect. Certainly not the first time. If it's really hard and worth doing, you get self-esteem by going beyond what you thought you could do and realizing that you were more capable than you thought.
A sense of accomplishment.
Right. Our finals are not like any other the tests that there are no bubble charts or to fill in the little bubbles. Finals take 2 weeks at Liberty Harbor, about a week and a half really, and they're in small groups, open book, open note, open teacher, everything. They have
All the resources available
everything.
to them.
And what they need to do is create it ends up being about a 50-page document where they have done an outline for a larger paper. They've done somewhere around 30 definitions where they're connecting material between classes, and then done a timeline for everything they've done. So when they hand this thing in, there's usually here, I've done it.
Okay, Rico. Well, we're down to the wire here
All right.
again. But I would encourage the folks at home to contact the folks at Liberty Harbor Academy. And if you want to give your phone number real quick,
Yep,
and the website real quick, and we'll be signing off.
For the summer, because we are lightly staffed, my cell phone 603-686-0905. That's the best way. It's basically a company phone.
686.
0905.
Okay.
LibertyHarborAcademy.org.
Okay. And the website, libertyharboracademy.org. All right, folks, we thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week on Education Matters. Take care.